Sees Truth Channel.
Thank you for coming to Sees Truth Channel. Today's title is called Genesis Ch.1, the Elohim's creation. This video is going to be quite different from most things you've heard in Genesis. And some of you, it might make a little upset. Others of you will find it very satisfying. For the most part, I hope you all find it satisfying. So I would like to start at verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. So I would like to go ahead and go over the translations with you as we go through these verses. God in this verse is Elohim, and waters in this verse means the primeval deep. So Elohim is plural, and it means divine beings, judges, rulers, mighty men, goddesses, gods, and God. So whenever we read verse 1, it says that Elohim created the heaven and the earth, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So the Elohim had no light whenever they created the heaven and the earth. The earth had no life, and there was no light in the universe. So let's go on to verse 3. And Elohim said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. So right here, the Elohim said, "Let there be light." And "let there be" means to fall out. So the Elohim saw a light fall out. And if you go to verse 4, it says, and Elohim saw that light, and that it was good. So whenever they say saw that light, that means if a light was falling down or descending, then they would have seen it because they were in darkness. Well, whenever they saw that light, they seen it was good, and they divided the light from the darkness. What did Christ say about a kingdom divided? That it shall not stand. So at this point, there was no division in heaven until the light fell out of heaven, and the Elohim saw that light and saw that it was good, and they divided the light from the darkness. So right here, the Elohim's kingdom suddenly had a division in it. We have light and we have darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So right here, the first day means the first age. Day translates into age. There was no sun and moon in the sky yet. Therefore, there could have been no evening and no morning. There was no time. Therefore, we are referring to an age, a period of time, which is roughly 2,200 years. So the Elohim saw a light fall out of heaven, or the heavens, and when they seen it, they seen that it was good. And they divided the light from the darkness. The second day. And Elohim said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second age. So once again, whenever the Elohim made a firmament in the midst of the waters, which is the primeval deep, they caused an expanse in the midst of the waters. And that expanse divided the waters from above from the waters below. And to make a firmament means to spread out an expanse. So there was no water. It was like space. And once again, Elohim divided the waters under the firmament versus the waters above the firmament. And God called the firmament heaven. So this expanse that was spread out by Elohim was called heaven. So we're talking about space, the universe. So the firmament separates us from the primeval deep where the spirit of Elohim moves in the heavens. One thing I would like to say also is if you watch my video, the cherub that covers can also mean the cherub that spreads out. I would just like to point that out. You can refer to that video on my video list. The third day. And Elohim said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." And it was so. So real quick, this says that Elohim said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself." So I would like to ponder on this. If we are talking about his kind, if we were talking about the Father in heaven, the Father's seed is within himself. He keeps his seed within himself, as well as the Christ, who keeps his seed within himself. Therefore, whenever it says after his kind, it is referring to the Father in heaven, whose seed remains within himself. Verse 12. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself, after his kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day, or the third age. So, at this very moment, in these verses, creation of life had begun. Now let's remember, Elohim were in darkness. They saw a light fall out of heaven, and they caused a division between the light and the darkness. Now suddenly, after this light comes, the earth, which was void and desolate, now is producing life. Elohim is putting life and producing life on the earth. And he is making stuff after his kind. Whose kind? The light that descended out of heaven. Who sent his one and only Son down to the universe to save us? That would be our great Father in heaven. So the great Father in heaven sent his Son down to the universe to save the universe. And the Elohim started creating life whenever this light fell down, and started creating life after his kind. Why? Because life had descended down upon the universe. Life who is in the image of the great Father in heaven. So whenever we see his kind, it is the ones containing the light of life. Whenever it says their kind, it is the ones made after the likeness of the angels and the Yahweh. The fourth day, the sun, moon, and stars. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So in verse 14, where it says, let there be lights, these lights are called luminaries whenever you look up the Hebrew of the word. And whenever you look up luminaries, it means false light. So Elohim, who were in darkness, saw light fall out of heaven and started creating whenever they seen this light afterwards. There were events in between, and we're going to go over that later. And amongst the creating, Elohim decided to make false lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide. Once again, dividing. Now, what did Christ say he came to do? He says, I come not to bring peace, but I came to divide. So, if we refer back up to the beginning here, whenever the light fell out of heaven, what immediately happened? Elohim saw the light and divided the light from the dark. Once again down here, Elohim caused an expanse to divide the waters from the waters. So the false lights made a division between the light and the darkness, meaning that maybe the sun and the moon and the stars are there to keep us from the truth, to keep us in darkness. That's why they must be darkened when the veil is removed, as it is said in Revelation. The sun and the moon keep us caught up in this false reality by giving us a false angle of light. This was done by the Yahweh Elohim before the fall, and why things on earth were corruptible. Being tranced by the false angle of light that is being projected by the sun and the moon. Remember, the true light, being Christ, came to divide, and ever since Genesis 1:3, that is exactly what is happening. The Elohim caused a division between the light and the darkness. Therefore, the Elohim who is creating here does not want the earth to be in the light that descended. He wants the earth to be in a false light, a false luminary. He wants a false reality to exist upon the earth. The fifth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of the heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters bringeth forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So, in verse 21 here, it says that God created great whales. If you look up great whales, it means majestic serpents, which I think and do believe are the dinosaurs. And every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. Whose kind would that be? That would be the angels and the Yahweh Elohim, the ones who dwell in darkness. And every winged fowl being the birds after his kind. So the birds have the light of life. The creatures that moveth in the waters are after their kind. They do not contain the light of life, and neither did the dinosaurs. Hence, that's why the dinosaurs ate each other. So the dinosaurs were made in this verse from what I do believe. If that is the case, they were violent creatures, and then this false reality, they killed each other. Yahweh who dwells in darkness would be in their likeness, or they would be in Yahweh's likeness. The sixth day. And Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, the cattle and the creeping things and the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So once again, the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, being the light of life. The cattle and the creeping things and the beasts on the earth after the light of life. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after the light of life, and the cattle after their kind as well. Here it says that he made the cattle after his kind, and he made cattle after their kind. And every thing that creepeth upon the earth was after the light of life. Verse 26. And Elohim said, Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So right here, the Elohim is asking a question, I think. And they're saying, let us make man in our image. Now notice this does not say create, it says make. These are two different words here, make and create. So I believe that the darkness is trying to make man after their image. And I don't think that happened. Instead, if you go to the next verse, it says that they created man after the image, being the image that is the light of Christ. So let's go to verse 27. So Elohim created man in his own image. The image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So, Elohim, well, a certain category of Elohim said, Let us make man in our image. They got told no, so Elohim created man in his own image, being the light. And whenever he created man and woman at the same time. And he blessed them and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over everything that moveth upon the earth. For I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. So Elohim created man in the image of the Christ, the Father in heaven. So Elohim created man in his own image. Male and female at the same time created them, and said, I have given you every tree which is upon the face of all the earth, and to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth age. So whenever man was created, man was given dominion over the entire earth, not put into a garden. The word garden in Hebrew means an enclosure. The man that was created in verse 127 was given dominion over the whole earth, and told that he could eat of every tree on the earth. No restrictions, no laws. So Elohim saw all that he had made and said that it was good. But never did he say anything about what he created. So let's go to chapter 2 in Genesis. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it He had rested from all his work which God created and made. So I would like to point out something. Elohim ended all the work which he had made. Remember, I told you that to create and to make is two different words in the Hebrew. Elohim destroyed all the work which he had made, and he rested from all the work which he had made. He blessed the seventh day, and he rested from all the work which he had created and made. So Elohim did not end the work in which he had created. He rested from the work which he created. He ended all that he had made. So everything that we see in this list that was made by Elohim, he ended it. All the things that were created, he rested from. So the Elohim ended all they had made, yet when you read, it says all he had made was good. So what about the things he created? Were they all destroyed? I think not. The image must carry on, therefore the corruptible remained. So that salvation was made possible. So now let's observe how the end of Elohim's work took place and the cause of the destruction of not only some of the men created in the image, but also the dinosaurs and all the other things that were made on the land. Let's go to Isaiah 34:11. But the cormorant, being the Christ, and the bittern, being the rolled up, representing those who were cast out of heaven, shall possess the land. The owl also and the raven, being the dawn and the dusk, shall dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion, being the cord of unreality and futile things. And the stones of emptiness he will place in it. These stones of emptiness represent the cornerstone of emptiness. Do you remember Christ said that he is the cornerstone the builders rejected? Okay. Well, this is talking about Yahweh. And it says that the dawn and the dusk shall dwell in it, talking about the expanse. And he, being the Yahweh, the cherub that covers, the cherub that spreads out, the cherub that stretches out a line of unreality and futile things, and the cornerstone of emptiness. This is Yahweh that does this. Christ said, I am the stone the builders rejected. Well, right here is what he was referring to. So let's go to Revelation 12, verse 1 and 2. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child travailed, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. I do believe that this is a reference to Lilith, the mother of the living, the bride that left her husband to have her own children. Revelation 12:3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. I do believe this red dragon is speaking of Nibiru, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. So Nibiru has a tail of comets that follow behind it. If Nibiru were to be this red dragon and it were going through our solar system, it would whip a third part of these comets to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. Revelation 12:5 and 6. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto Elohim and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of Elohim, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So let's go through this. In verse 126, right up here, it says, "And Elohim said, let us make man in our image." Down here, a woman was travailing to give birth to a man-child. This man-child, the red dragon wanted to devour, wanted to consume the Son of Righteousness, wanted to consume the child, being the S-U-N, Son of Righteousness. But before the Son of Righteousness could do this, the Elohim took the child, and the child was brought up to the throne of Elohim. So what did Elohim do with this child, or this knowledge of this child? Elohim created man in his own image and after his own likeness. Now, why would Elohim do this? Because the dragon, being the Son of Righteousness, wanted to devour the child. The Father sent his Son to save mankind. In order for us to be saved, we must be made in the image. And that is exactly what happened. The child was caught up unto Elohim, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Elohim. Now, if you remember, Lilith left her husband to have children of her own. Lilith has this knowledge to bring forth mankind. And she says, hey, let us make man after our image and after our likeness. And she was told no. And Elohim took that child and created man after the light of life's image, the image of the Father in heaven, which is Christ. So let's run through it. On day one, a light fell out, and a division between the light and the darkness came about, which is good versus evil. On day two, an expanse was made called heaven. On day three, dry land, seas, grass, herbs, and the fruit tree came after his kind, being the light of life. Day four, the sun, moon, and stars, and division between the light and the darkness, again due to the false luminaries. The false reality begins. Division causes a kingdom to fall. At the very time and point that the sun and the moon, being the false luminaries, came to be, time began. Death began. Day 5. Fish and the serpents after their kind, the fowls after his kind, came about. Day 6. The living creature, the cattle, the creeping things, the beasts of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind as well. On day 6, man was asked to be made after their kind, but wasn't. Instead, man was created after the image of Elohim, whom contained the Christ, the light of life. And on day 7, Elohim ended all that was made and rested from all that he created and made. Elohim destroyed all that was made in his likeness. The things created were in need of salvation, including the original man. And Yahweh was cast out, and now we are where he begins his own makings and basically replicates his own earth and kingdom after the Elohim to try and replicate the true God, being the Father in Christ, and the Elohim who created before. So this is my take, the way I view and read Genesis 1. I know that there's a lot of information, so I would strongly suggest that you read over the paper yourself and come to your own conclusions. I ask you to please like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.